exactly how this goes down. For those of you who remember, Elab played a really good Rubik. GH God was on that yesterday, and so it'll be interesting to see how that transfers to someone like the Coddle. There was just, obviously it's Rubik, there's a lot of skill shots you can do, there's a lot of really, wow, you stole that spell and you won, and you did awesome things, so I'm just really interested to see how it'll work out with Coddle, kind of a hero that we don't always think of as super skilled, but there are some fun things you can do with the Illuminate, making sure you're blinding and recalling at the right time.
Yeah, the blinding light specifically in certain situations. We don't see a lot of keep through the light, but part of the reason is that he's hard to play well. Specifically, he's hard to play in a way that makes an impact. So the fact that Elab are willing to run it, I think is, yeah, it's interesting to me. This is one of my favorite heroes as well, so I'm glad to see it getting a little bit of play.
Yeah, a lot of people apparently love the Coddle. Let's do some player introductions as we get into it. We've got Mage playing up that.
Makes it not that great of a rotation, to be honest.
Yeah. So they will just wait for the 2-minute runes. Let's talk some game plans out here, because Elab, they've got a really interesting draft. It looks like it's just kind of oriented towards Lifestealer. It gets big, and then you do stuff around that. But they've got a lot of good playmakers. Oh, actually, okay, wasn't quite sure whether Rodham wanted to go on the Doxy there, but oh, we're actually going to miss the Rikimaru dying. So,
nice kill once again.
yeah.
Just kind of moving on to that Ricky and engaging where he wasn't really expecting to be forced to fight. Spirit Breaker is a good counter to Ricky if you play him well. The charge you can do from across the map before the Ricky realizes that he's been seen. You land with the dust, and there's really nothing a Ricky can do, especially at early levels.
Yeah. Well,
You're going to guess that the puck is going to go into the Veil of Discord first because of how long it'll probably take. The expectation that the Lifestealer is going to get 2 items before they really start engaging anyway. If he goes for a Blink Dagger first, it basically means that that Lifestealer has to get going earlier than we're expecting.
yeah. And for bottom lane, so I'm actually really impressed that the Timbersaur's already level 4, hasn't really been harassed out, so this is going really well, and he's also gone for the infused raindrops already. Love seeing that item.
Yeah, so part of the reason that the Timbersaw is doing so well is that the side pulls were contested by the Ricky, right? So having the Ricky down here instead of hanging around mid where he can really get, well, speaking of mid.
Yeah, Puck does get brought down by the Spirit Siphon. Not quite enough damage to kill Yol, but maybe Rikimaru can help him out there. One more auto attack does get the return kill. So it's not the best turnout, but at least Elab gets something from this one.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's certainly better for Fantastic-Five than it was for Elab.
I think a really nice rotation there, and as we talked about, part of the problems with Spirit Breaker is we've seen a lot of games where he's kind of fallen off, hasn't been able to get stuff to happen the way that is necessary. So here, seeing that he's already been involved in a couple of engagement, that's really good.
Yeah. It's also very difficult to utilize a Spirit Breaker in a meta so oriented around vision as our recent meta has been, with Ricky's, Bounty Hunters. Lifestealer should be fine. With Ricky's, Bounty Hunters, Beastmasters.
Look at those bashes, though. Yol will be able to escape here. There's going to be another Mono Leak onto the Doxy, who actually ends up stunning himself. Rikimaru doesn't have the pounce on cooldown, so isn't able to catch up.
A charge out, though, and there is a dust charge here. I can't imagine he's going to follow through on this, though.
Well, he's been doing... Yeah.
I can't imagine he goes. I'm imagine... Okay, there we go. That would have been really optimistic. Into 3 with the Ricky basically at full health by yourself. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do now. He was just trying to get back up to lane. You can see that he's leeching over here now. While on the bottom lane, Illidan a little bit behind the Lifestealer when it comes to CS, but is actually ahead in terms of gold and being a real pain about that Mono Snake.
Yeah, I mean, the infused raindrops help a little bit in this case, but they have just been fully used thanks to the Winter Wyvern. So, Timbersaw's survivability is about to drop a bit. In the mid lane, they're moving on to Puck.
Oh, they're also giving it a go on to GH God in this top lane. The double ion shells are going to be too much, burning him down. And now they're going on to Death Prophet in mid. Will they be able to kill her? No, she turns around with the Spirit Siphon. It's just too much heal up. Rikimaru trying to do what he can to help. But that is such a pain, that Spirit Siphon just getting her out of tricky situation after tricky situation.
This is a fantastic charge, too. The Ricky doesn't realize that they know where he is. Now he realizes. But up until that point, it gave the Medusa, or excuse me, it gave the Death Prophet perfect opportunity to.
Oh, but maybe too little, too late. A beautiful Illuminate. One more auto attack will bring it down the Death Prophet. And now Yol doesn't have the mana for charge. The auto attacks. Will he deny himself to the Ancients? Yes, he will. A nice play there coming out of Yol.
A good deny, but you know, at the end of the day, Elab are pretty happy with that exchange. They managed to kill the core out of the mid. She went a bit too aggressively with the charge having already been completed. They didn't have a response for any initiation. This Keeper Light needs to be more careful, though. He's hanging out on the side again. He just did go down there, and he's sitting at 0 and 2. Coddle is a hero that, if you start to die a little bit, it's very easy to just end the game like 0 and 20. So, as Fantastic-Five start to become focused on him, he needs to make sure he's staying in the back lines.
Yeah, and speaking of focused on him, we've got Lifestealer on the receiving end of a charge. If Spirit Breaker gets the nice bashes that he did last time, could be something. The Illuminate's also just going to be used right there. Going in onto Rodham, the Ion Shell added up. Lifestealer just pops the open wounds, trying to pick off Yol. Doesn't have the mana for Rage, and there's going to be a nice Splinter Blast. Here comes the Death Prophet from the other side. They need to get on out, but there's no escape for Lifestealer. And even the Coddle will fall to the Ion Shells.
Yeah, the rotation's coming up. Really, this is that was a vision problem, to be honest. The Dire have defensive vision around the map, but they weren't able to see when, or excuse me, the Radiant have defensive vision around this area, but they weren't able to see the actual rotations.
For the Dire, these wards a bit aggressive. They've got some deep ones, and it just meant that nobody knew. Well, Coddle comes in, wants to illuminate to just blast stuff off of the tower, but the tower not going to be saved there. And will they be able to get anything in return? They're draining all the mana of BZZ. Actually, nothing left. She does have the one charges that are stacking up. Will she be able to pop them? Cold Embrace hoping to save her. She'll take some Illuminate spam here, and it's going to be Pasha maybe who goes down. This is a 2v3, though. They have to be careful. They need one more hit onto Pasha. A GH God goes down, and Rodham needs to find someone, needs to find anyone there. Spirit Siphon flying out on him again. There is Puck coming to help it out, and their auto attacks will be enough while Pasha able to TP out.
That's great for Rodham. Just getting in there, getting the aggression out, realizing that as the supports go down, he's going to continue to have the damage output to stop Fantastic-Five. They started that fight with not very much mana between them. And then they stayed to fight it, I think, despite their better judgment.
Yeah, it seemed like they just expected that the overwhelming numbers would have been really good for Fantastic-Five, but didn't end up quite working out in their favor. And a really good job there by both the Coddle and the Lifestealer in forcing them around, making them lose mana to that mana leak. But meanwhile, Ricky, level 4, 9 minutes in, could be lower, could be higher. It's not the worst. And Timbersaul's actually been given quite a bit of space due to these rotations. It's just been him versus the Medusa.
Yeah, Medusa is doing very well. She's on top of the net worth, but compared to her equivalency on the other team, she's only about 100 gold ahead of the Lifestealer. Same basic difference between the Death Prophet and the Puck, and same basic difference between the Darkseer and the Timbersaw. All around the cores, very even distribution of gold between these two teams. Nobody really standing out yet.
Well, just speaking of the Timbersaw getting some space, there is a charge headed his way. I'm not sure these two can do too much, and yeah, the charge will get cancelled. That's one of the nice things. Elab have some good escapes across the team when it comes to the orbs, the pounce away from the Ricky Morrow, the Timber Chain.
Yeah, this is interesting itemization here from the Lifestealer. He is going to presumably be going into that armlet, but he goes for the Gloves of Haste first, and not really picking up anything else, any of his other components, presumably trying to hide how close he is.
Okay, there they go, opening onto the Wyvern. She's silenced up, but here comes the Death Prophet. Puck manages to blow up the Wyvern. Will they be able to get what they want? The Dream Coil seemed to be very odd, and now Mage, being forced backwards, needs to get on out of here, but it's not looking good, and Puck will fall.
This is what I was trying to avoid saying, that there's a possible Midas pickup at 10 minutes and 40 seconds from the life. So that's going to be first used well after 11 minutes on the farming core. That's way too late for Midas.
Yeah, and now, oh goodness, they're just TPing in one after another to die here on Elab. Timbersaw will come in trying to find something, but completely off the mark. Just unlucky guesses there, but also just a really bad initiation and team fight deep under the tower. kind of expecting Fantastic-Five not to rotate.
Yeah, and Illidan continues to farm up very well, getting what she needs in order to make this Medusa kind of shine as we go out of the mid game. Presumably that Midas is intended to allow the Lifestealer to keep up with the Medusa in net worth, as she does flash farm much better than he does. But yeah, having it come out so late means that it won't end up having paid off for itself in quite some time. And he also got it so late that it's not able to help him in the laning phase. Normally a Midas would allow him to just get rid of creeps that have Ion Shell and farm better in the lane, but we're not in the laning phase anymore, so a little too late for that.
Meanwhile, up in the jungle, Pasha in a little spot of trouble, gonna go for the TP away. Do they have the damage? Illuminate's not enough. Couldn't channel it for long enough, and he gets a clean TP.
Yeah, and that's very aggressive positioning coming from the Darkseer, but he can get away with it because there aren't really any controls coming out of ELAB, right? They have one stun, it's a Dream Coil, or maybe the mana leak if, you know, you run yourself into stun with it.
Yeah. So it's going well. We're going to see a little bit of a gold lead coming out for Fantastic-Five, mostly off the back of that one turnaround team fight around, 4,000 gold lead, 2,000 experience, mostly off of the engagement in mid that failed so hard. And also you can't forget the Fantastic-Five already took the top tower. Hopefully when the exorcism's up again, they can turn their sights on another.
And that's pretty much going to be the goal here. Use that exorcism and use the aggression of the Spear Breaker to punish this relatively greedy Midas pick before the Lifestealer is able to actually get active. Timbersaw is a hero that needs a decent amount of farm after he's scaling past the 12-minute mark. His levels just aren't enough for him because he needs a bigger mana pool. The Lifestealer is not really ready to get active because he went for Midas, and Puck is being charged right now.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of folks super close, so there will be just the quick Puck escape. You're actually going for that one despite nobody else from Fantastic-Five rotating. So it's a little interesting decision there, but again, they're very comfortable. They've got a solid, easy to execute game plan. Death Prophet will push down a few towers, Medusa will get all that extra gold from it, and then she's their late game.
Right. And it just seems like a much more natural transition between one core shining to another core shining. Right, you open up the game with the old running around and creating opportunity, then the Death Prophet starts to become an issue.
Illidan, though, in a little bit of trouble, does get off that stone gaze, and now a Winter's Curse turnaround as well. Interesting interaction there. They're all backing back through a wall. They never killed Illidan, so he gets to wander away while the Rikimaru really just wants to not be there. Standing in a bunch of Ion Shells, and also in the middle, they get the Coddle.
Yeah.
In the middle of the river.
Excuse me. The Fantastic-Five squad really didn't suffer anything there. They had to spend some skills, but they are now able to apply slow pressure onto this tower, and there's not a big response. There's a Dream Coil, but not a lot else.
Yeah, there's no follow-up, and that's a really scary thing for ELAB in general. I was kind of expecting the Dream Coil, you know, you force them to break it, or you can throw a Chakram on them, you might have a Lifestealer going after them, but it's just not coming together yet.
Absolutely not. Right, the mid lane is going to have an exorcism available if they want it. Probably don't even need it, which means that they can use that exorcism to either take a fight after this tower drops or move on to another tower very quickly.
Yeah, Coddle doing a good job of trying to get people off. Oh, will get the deny. Getting people off the tower, I meant. They will, I mean, it's a good deny. It's excellent for them, especially against this lineup that is planning on just pushing down all of their stuff, and yeah. It's something.
A good deny, but the Lifestealer was sitting there not farming in order to deny, which I don't know if that's actually better for your team to have the Lifestealer there. He's almost to his armlet, which is his first combat item. Meanwhile, the Medusa has a Yasha and is pretty close to, well, she's a decent chunk into her Lincoln Sphere as well.
What we haven't talked about is expected builds coming out of some of these supports. We often see Rikimaru ending up trying to go for a Diffusal Blade. Nice TP out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if Coddle just goes for the Glimmer Cape. Seeing the Ags is always lovely, but it's such a big commitment.
Radiant's middle tower is under
Yeah, I agree. The Glimmer Cape here is probably for the best in terms of just providing some...
Oh goodness, Coddle actually wants to get the motor on and manages to. A nice kill there onto Pasha.
Yeah, the blinding light pushing the hero around so that the mana leak didn't stuns him. That's the only real way that ELAB have to stun heroes, and it's glad that it worked out for him in that particular case.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
really nice to see there, and gonna help Coddle out with some much needed farm. Speaking of, it looks like Elab getting ready to push that top tower. That'll be a nice buff of gold to them again. We haven't checked in on the lifestealer, but like you mentioned, because of this Midas, there's still no omelet. I think it's flying out. Yeah, but you know, 16 minutes versus if it weren't for that Midas, it would probably have been gotten around the 10-minute mark.
Yeah, the only question you really have to ask yourself is, would Lifestealer have been able to fight with just the armlet into this draft? Because if not, then it doesn't matter if he had the armlet before this point, because he still wouldn't have been actualizable, but I suspect he would have been able to be finding kills if he had had that a bit earlier. And instead, they're going to give up a tier 1 tower, probably an entire tier 2 tower bottom as well, and they're not getting a lot of...
Yeah, Coddle trying to zone them back, and it does look like they're considering backing up on Fantastic-Five. Exorcism will not be used for this next engagement. Top didn't really take damage, so I was a little surprised that they really didn't want to fight.
Yeah, so use the Exorcism to grab some free damage when you can. The Elab not really in a position to chase out yet. The Ricky does have the Lifestealer inside of him, but once again, this is time that the Lifestealer is not using farming, right? The Timber Saw is still a decent chunk away from his first item, the Bloodstone. Yeah, things are going to get better for Elab if Fantastic-Five don't apply pressure, but...
Well, speaking of pressure, they are opening up onto the Wyvern. They're trying to pick him off. They managed to get him. Rage there, saving the Lifestealer, but a vacuum back. Tricks of the Trades trying to save the Ricky Maru, but there are too many heroes, and even the Stone Gaze, just in case. Elab unable to take any of these fights, getting caught out of position. Puck does drop the Drink Quill, but what's it gonna do? There's the Timber Chain away, but it's not far enough, and CBS will fall.
Yeah, it's really hard to see the way that Elab come out of this with control of this match, right? They don't have any hard stun, which means that they can't really do anything about the Darkseer or the Spirit Breaker dancing around these fights, except if the Keeper of the Light is up front, which is not where Keeper of the Light wants to be at this stage in the game. The Medusa is wildly out-farming the Lifestealer, so the Midas Gambit has not paid off. And they have no vision around the map. I lied. They have one ward up here on the top lane that's about to expire. So they will have no vision around the map very soon.
It's looking very, very dark for them versus the Radiant, of course, having a lot of their tier 1s still up, have a lot of vision, and then there's nice deep wards and wards in the river, letting them know what's going on.
Yeah, this is... But Lifestealer has spent a lot of time lately just trying to set up for kills, not successfully, instead of just doing whatever he can to get the basic items that he needs in order to engage. I really think this... It is a case where Elab, unfortunately, they need to make space for Lifestealer, and they need to do it by pressuring the Medusa. That's much easier said than done, though. There's a lot of responses that Fantastic-Five have in order to protect the Medusa, including just vision control.
Yeah, it's really, like, this Fantastic-Five draft is really working out for them. Medusa already up to a Yasha and almost having the Lincolns. She's, as you said, constantly protected. You can just Winter's Curse the opponents if they're going onto her. Nice charge through the enemy team. Cold Embrace. Sure, that Puck has quite a bit of magical damage, which the Cold Embrace won't protect you from. But there's just a lot of good business to save this Medusa, and it's really scary.
Yeah, and she can also buy a lot of time for her team to come and help her if she gets into trouble with the Stone Gaze. Especially because Elab they don't have burst damage, really, right? They don't have anything that chews through her at this stage. And other than the Keeper of the Light, they don't have any way to chew through her mana pool either, which means that as she starts to get continued farm, it's going to be very difficult for Elab to do it.
You've got a Lifestealer, a carry who, as we talked about, has some flaws in that he spends quite a bit of his time not farming, but instead inside of other people. Do you try to cut that down, make sure you get the Echo Saber, smoke up with the Puck after that, or do you want to farm more?
They need to get Timbersaw into this game. Timbersaw absolutely he needs to get his Bloodstone. He's very close to it. In fact, he can get it right now if he wants to drop the mana boots. That is key. They do have the Echo Saber up on the Lifestealer now as well. So if they pop the Lifestealer into the Timbersaw and move out, find the Medusa alone, that could presumably be a kill. Otherwise, they just need to stop trailing in on these 2-on-5 fights that are unfavorable. Get some vision up, or at least keep some vision up and make sure they're maintaining control of their own side of the map.
Yeah. Illidan going to be playing with the puck some. We can already see the strength of Illidan coming out there. Just puck not quite able to stand up to it. But he does have almost 3,000 gold. I'm not so sure what puck's going to be building into, but there are definitely options there.
Yeah, it seems likely that a Cyclone Staff is going to be the case, and it is. He just purchased it out. That allows him to, A, dodge a little bit of the damage that's coming out and provide some control to keep the Lifestealer from getting kited. Also allows him to dodge out some of the damage coming out of the Spear Siphon from the Death Prophet. So.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Coddle trying to wave cut some actually ended up missing there, unfortunately. So won't quite be able to stop the push, although maybe the push will just stop itself.
Where is Keeper Light going here? He's got a TP, I assume. Yeah,
he's fine. He's just hanging out. It's just an interesting rotation coming out from the Radiant. I was a little bit surprised that they decided to back out so far. Puck still chasing. They're going to run into 3 if he's not careful. But Mage will back it up.
Yeah, with the Cyclone Staff, he's very slippery, right? He can Cyclone Staff himself, then he can blink away. He's got the Orb Jaunt as well. And he's got the ability to buy time with Phase Shift in addition. It's not likely that Fantastic.Five are going to be able to kill him without using Winter's Curse. Or highly investing into it.
Well, we get to wait a little bit, folks, as we sit back, relax, watch the teams farm. The net worth graph is dipping down. It's no longer just climbing up in Fantastic.Five's favor, so they are finding some farm across the board. Timbersaw trying to give it a go onto RMN, and so there's a charge coming his way while Timbersaw says, nope, I want to TP away. Can they get... No. RMM, I think, was going to drop the Winter's Curse there if he could, but wasn't in range.
Yeah, he also the charge just a couple of units off, to be honest. Very narrow. Illidan is getting to the point where he's got the Manta Style, he's got the Lincoln Sphere up as well, and he's ready to frontline and push. I'm not sure that there's a ton that ELAB can do about this, especially with the threat of the Exorcism behind him.
Well, they seem
Charge
uninterested.
bottom,
Yeah, they've got a charge onto Ricky Morrow, but surprise, there was a Lifestealer inside of there. Tricks of the Trades now coming out to keep Ricky Morrow alive, but whether it's enough, Ricky trying to back on out some. We also have an engagement in the mid lane. Spirit Siphon onto the Timbersaw. He's taking a lot of damage. There's the Scream, the Stone Gaze coming out. Timbersaw, what are you going to do? Die is the answer. And Puck dropped that Dream Coil to no effect. Charge onto Lifestealer. The Yule's up to stop it along with the Rage. And this Exorcism is taking this tier 2 whether they like it or not on ELAB.
Another nice use of the Yules in order to make sure that the engagement ceased where it needed to cease. Unfortunately for ELAB, that's too little too late to stem the bleeding on this particular case. In this game, they are now about 5,000 net worth in deficit, but bear in mind that's 5,000 net worth in deficit against an opponent hero who carries much harder and farms much faster than their own carry. If they're not able to find some favorable engagements and very soon, it's looking pretty unlikely that they're going to be able to have a late game resurgence.
Yeah. Ricky Morrow is trying to find some folks out, but it won't be enough. They're just going to surge it up, and it's really scary into the Medusa playing like this. What do you think the Lifestealer needs? Oh, okay, we're going. Never mind. On to the Spirit Breaker, who can just charge away now unless the silence comes out. Instead, there's going to be the Yule's. Puck not sure whether they want to go for this, and Yule will just turn themselves invisible. I was going to say, what do you need as a Lifestealer to deal?
Going to get a Diffusal Blade, and that will help. But by that point, the mana pool is going to be so large in Illidan that one Diffusal Blade is not going to be really enough to help knock them down.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
Well, Ricky Morrow is trying to come and help out. They popped the Lincoln, throwing around an Illuminate, but it's kind of going to be on the wrong side. Let's see if Illidan ends up walking back into it. Does get hit by it, but there's the Stone Gaze. They need to look away. Tricks of the Trade, who coming out, but it's not going to do enough work. Puck has gone down elsewhere to the Death Prophet. Now the Winter's Curse onto all of them. Illidan is standing there in the chalk room that's spinning, so maybe they can pick him off here. Yes, he'll go down, but here comes the rest of the team. Can ELAB escape successfully? Pasha vacuums them back. Now he has an Exorcism onto their faces. Lifestealer trying to get a kill where he can find it, but instead stunned up here. Another Illuminate coming out. Lifestealer unable to finish Yule. It's Timbersaw trying desperately to get away, but Yule's up, and it's only Coddle who'll be the survivor.
That was so close to the engagement that ELAB needed, right? They got very, very close to knocking the Spirit Breaker down. They got really close to keeping the Lifestealer alive. The Timbersaw with the Bloodstone charges that he had was doing great work, but now Timbersaw is sitting on a half Bloodstone basically, so all of that net worth is kind of minimized as well. Even though it's only a 7,500 net worth lead.
They are killing the Coddle. It's looking not great. Crypt Swarm lives on a health, and with all these TPs coming out, RMN maybe needs to be careful. Gets brought down by the Timbersaw. There's no mana on BZZ. He needs to run away. Puck is chasing. Dream Coil has been dropped. They're also going to make sure they buff up that magical damage. Can the Death Prophet get away? She pops a lot of one charges. Is thrown up in the Yules by the Puck. Again, the orb on through. A beautiful stun, but they have a lot of reinforcements on Elab. They're backed back. And that should be the end of the engage. Oh, I spoke too soon. Pasha manages to burn all of his money and gets stunned. Stone Gaze is available for Medusa. They're coming in. Timbersaw gonna help finish him off. And now Illidan deciding to back on out. Doesn't just want to blow that Stone Gaze on nothing.
Yeah, that was a weird counter engagement, but it ended up working out for Elab. The decision to go back in from Fantastic.Five, helping to bolster up those Bloodstone charges that Timbersaw just lost a little bit. And they will also get a tower out of it. That really is more valuable, I think, than it on its surface looks, as a couple of these heroes are very close to the next side.
But the Winter's Curse, it's going to kill off the Puck, and Illidan with the Stone Gaze infesting, trying to save their lives. Infest Bomb will be activated, but it's not even enough to get Rodham away. He's stuck right in the thick of it, going down there, and they paid a high price for that tower.
Yeah, they probably should have backed up and just let the Keeper Light knock it down on his own, just for safety. They knew that Fantastic-Five were kind of around. It's easy to take a couple of kills when you're playing from behind, get your opponents to rout, and then feel like, oh, we can actually stand up. They're scared of us now. They're scared of us in this moment. But it was just a regroup. And with that Exorcism up as well, there's no incentive to not go into the Roche pit. Elab are going to be giving up that objective, and high ground is going to be very difficult to defend now.
No. Elab, they've got to try for it. They do have the Timbersaw, and that is always something that can help you with the high ground.
Yeah.
Along with the Illuminate spam, the Puck can take out waves very quickly.
Yeah, and also I was going to say on the plus side that some items were finished out of that before people died, right? You at least got the Yule Scepter of Divinity finished before CBS died on the Timbersaw. Some of that money was also spent on wards, so at least a couple heroes bought out before they died.
Yeah, but slowly but steadily, Fantastic-Five are pulling ahead. Now with the Roshan, Aegis up on Medusa, they're already having so much trouble killing this hero. I am unsure whether they can do it with an Aegis, and it feels like they need to not face head-on fights for the next 5 minutes, but what else can they do? Their lineup isn't excellent for split pushing. They can try with the Puck being so mobile, but it seems like it just won't work, and Exorcism will be knocking on your front door.
Right, that's the thing. They have to go out and be active, because if they're not out and active, then the Death Prophet's able to utilize the Exorcism by their base. So, worst case scenario is the Exorcism happens at the base. Fantastic-Five take a fight at the base with the Exorcism and also wipe the base. At least if Elab go out and engage, aggressively, even into the Aegis, they're forcing the Death Prophet to use her ultimate away from their structures and slowing down that push a little bit. In an ideal world, Fantastic-Five will kind of faff about here, and Elab will eventually be able to just buy time by split pushing or managing lane equilibrium in some other way. That would require some very abnormally passive play from Fantastic-Five.
Yol going for a charge onto the bottom lane, onto GH God. GH God has picked up a blink. Actually could buy out that Aghanim Scepter now. Managing to stop it, just gonna run up north.
Nice play from him. Yeah, so it is really about getting just close enough to engagements that you don't have to engage constantly for Elab. They have to be playing the edge, which is obviously really dangerous. The more you do that, the more likely it is that your opponents are going to be able to jump you. But they can't let the Death Prophet and the Medusa get up onto their steps of the base, and they can't keep them away from the base if they're in their base.
Well, they're having the Rikimaru do a little bit of push action on this top lane. It's not the best push, since Rikimaru is rocking brown boots. That's about it. But it's something, and keeping the pressure up like we talked about. They need to not fight on Elab. They can't fight into this Illidan's huge Medusa.
she doesn't even care. Look at this.
Radiant's
Yeah,
Death
she-
Prop is going to use the ultimate. They have failed at keeping Fantastic-Five away from the base, and I fear that there's not a lot that they can do in this situation.
Yeah, they'll try to silence up the Death Prophet, hoping to not have her drop some Spirit Siphons or Crypt Swarm, but instead it's just Illidan and the Spirits pounding away on the racks. Elab have to blink, or I guess you just forfeit the racks. You hope for something better. You start building Maelstroms.
The problem is they forfeit the racks here, and then the Exorcism is going to be, the rest of it's going to be utilized on the team.
Yeah. Puck goes for a little bit of a jump in, but they don't release the Infest Bomb. And Illidan staying around. They still haven't quite taken down the racks yet, so maybe Puck will go for something here. Taking a bit of damage, but that is it. Melee racks are down. Smoke screen popping up. Illidan has the Lincolns popped off. Immediately just pops the Stone Gaze to finish off the racks. And Elab, they can't make a move.
Dire's middle barracks has fallen.
Yeah, very nice plays by Fantastic-Five. They consolidated that advantage. They didn't get too aggressive. They didn't buy Elab's bait back into the tier 4s, which a lot of teams would find themselves with this much advantage and get overstay, and overstay their aggression into their opponent's base. For Elab, though, it's just going to happen again on another lane unless they find a way to keep Fantastic-Five out by the river. This is one way to try to do it. They are getting very aggressive and out into the field. They just don't really have any realistic mechanism to threaten Fantastic-Five.
Yeah, for Elab, it unfortunately does feel like this game is already out of their control. They're now waiting on a mistake by Fantastic-Five, but they have to make a big one, and it's really hard too with the Medusa.
Yeah, not only are they waiting for a mistake, but realistically, every time that Elab wants to get something done for the rest of the game, it will have to come out of a mistake from Fantastic-Five. It's not like one mistake here precipitates the success of Elab as they get into their late game. Like Medusa goes late harder than anything Elab have. Death Prophet also goes late harder than the Puck. Timbersaw goes late harder than the Darkseer, but that's a small consolation prize, especially since he's not able to keep up his Bloodstone charges.
Yeah. Well, here they go. This is going to be the second racks. If they let it fall, they have to choose a fight somewhere. They're just looking for the best one. Timberstore starts going in onto Illidan, but the Exorcism is there. And for Elab, fighting into Exorcisms, fighting still into this Aegis, it's really scary. At least they're burning a lot of the mana off of Illidan. That's something, but Tower already at a third of its health, now down to a quarter. It is going to fall here, and the racks again exposed. Puck, you just have to blink. You have to go for it. They've only got a few seconds left on that Aegis, so maybe now's the time where Illidan, short on mana, you gotta poke at him some. Oh,
Yeah.
But there it goes, regenning all the way back up. And Elab, they have to go there. Oh, they're finally jumping in. There's gonna be the Dream Coil, and immediately Pasha, they're trying to bring him down, but they can't. He's been cold embraced. There's the scream, the Stone Gaze coming out of the Medusa. GH God trying to get away, manages to Yules himself up. But Medusa is right there, wanting to get rid of this pesky Illuminator. And up next, they're looking to go onto RMN, but they won't find him. It's going to be Lifestealer who ends up falling here. And just Darkseer giving them the loop. This should be racks. Easily for Fantastic-Five. Even with the buybacks, it doesn't feel like they can lose these team fights. Ricky ends up going down and charge onto the Timbersaw. They're trying to burn mana of people, but CBS up in the air in the Yules will be attacking their teammate. And the rest of Fantastic-Five just waiting around for that Winter's Curse to end. Timbersaw goes down, tricks of the trade, barely tickles the team lineup. And it looks like Ricky will fall again here. They have a sentry right on top of him. There's just nothing Elab can do.
Yeah, Elab had the right idea on that fight. Try to keep him away from the racks, wait for the Aegis to expire, and immediately charge out, try to get them on the back end. They're just too far behind, right? I mean, look at them try to hit Illidan. It's like watching kindergartners try to fight Muhammad Ali.
And there's nothing a Lifestealer can do. The cold embraces are there always at the right times. They're going to force them back a little bit, but finally Illidan working on the racks. That's going to be racks number 2. And just like looking at the buyback status, there are none on the Dire.
The only reason Fantastic-Five are backing out right now is because they're out of mana. It's not like the Elab pose a significant threat. It's just that Fantastic-Five don't have the tools to actually break down the base. So they're going to go back and refill so that they can get structures, because the hero kills don't even matter to them anymore.
Which then brings us to what can you do next game if you're Elab? Obviously a different game, a different draft, but it just feels like this one very much out of their control.
Elab, I said it right as we were getting out of the draft, but it bears repeating. If they had come out with great momentum from the early game, they could have ridden that momentum all the way to victory. But that's a always a risky draft to make because everything for the entire game is resting on success at the beginning, whereas the draft from Fantastic-Five scaled into each hero a little bit better. They transitioned a little bit smoother. If one aspect of the game started to fall away, they still had catch-up plans, and ELAB just did not have that anywhere. I harped on it a little bit before. The decision to go for the Midas, while sound in concept, came very much too late, and really hurt ELAB's ability to actually get any momentum out of the early game, which is the only way they could have won.
Well, they're still holding out. Not sure if they're just trying to figure out what they should do for next game, or they actually think that they can take a team fight. Hopefully for ELAB they can.
I mean, if Fantastic-Five just throw themselves onto the fire a couple of times, maybe ELAB bounce back into this. It's just a very low percentage. That's all.
Seemingly hard. There's the Exorcism coming out again, just something ELAB have so much trouble fighting into. Glyph's gonna fly out. Illidan standing right up in the front lane. They've actually jumped into the back. A nice Dream Girl, but they're both silenced up. The Ricky Maru already going down. Lifestealer left alone there, in a lot of trouble. Vacuum back, no buyback. Actually, Lifestealer has it, but the GGs are cold. And ELAB will be down a game, headed in to the second game of the finals.
Now, that was a really well executed by Fantastic-Five. I think the draft was just generally better, easier to execute, had more fail-safe plans. They coordinated better. They utilized their Spirit Breaker extremely well, and they protected Illidan through all stages of the game. Interested to see how ELAB try to bounce back out of this, and we're going to come back with Game 2.